Hello there. So we're going to talk about chatbots today. I have two different websites. One is my main services website, where you can learn about working with me from a consulting standpoint or from a coaching standpoint. And I also have another website, which is my store. These are digital products that I have for specific software setup, some business strategy, and some business tools and things like that. So this is my store here, just to show you. And yesterday, so literally maybe 24 hours ago, I added a chat bot. So I'm using Tidio, Tidio. So I'm using Tidio as my chat bot. They have both a two-way chat so that you can interact as an operator, you or your team, and then also a chat bot. A chatbot is a series of logical question steps that a visitor to your site can take in order to get answers to their questions. I know a lot of people want to get chatbots on their website, but they aren't quite sure how to get started. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I find is a good logic to set up your chatbot, and then also how to handle it if you do not want two-way communication. The pricing for TDO is communicator is where you have the two-way communication. It goes down to 3 operators and it's $18 a month. And then the chatbot itself starts at 18 US. So I plan on just using the chatbot and not using the communicator, but I'm still working on that. I'm not sure yet. And I really don't care about branding. I don't really care about white labeling things, but it is there. So if you are trying to do both, if you wanted to have both the logical steps that people can take or opt out and, contact you, or if you really want to real-time answer questions, for higher end services, I would suggest doing a communicator if you can, just if you're like putting it on your sales page. So for example, if I was going to put this on my other website, my main website, I would put it on like my coaching, on my coaching sales page, and have like sales page, like questions from sales page, and maybe have the ability to jump in and answer questions that are more specific. But for products, digital products that are, they max out at about $200, I believe the chatbot's going to be enough, but we'll see. It's an experiment, right? So anyway, this is there's different chatbots out there. I liked this one because it wasn't built off of Facebook Messenger. This is its own chat. So there are some other chatbots out there that use Facebook Messenger as their platform. And I like, quote unquote, owning my platform and making it outside of Facebook. I just realized that most of my clients aren't on Facebook, and I want to interact as a business on Facebook and not as a personal person. So sometimes people who are business owners want to have a business profile and a personal profile. So I just felt like having a standalone chatbot that is not part of Facebook was the best solution for me. All right, so now that we've gone through pricing, let's talk about how I built my chatbot. So I wanted to make sure that I answered as many questions as possible, and that I sorted people into the right section. So basically, what that means is, just like there's a concept when you're learning Python about the Harry Potter sorting hat, where you're trying to sort people into the right house based on certain criteria, like their favorite animal, their favorite subject, and their personality. You ask them a couple questions, and like based on that, you can put them into the right house. So you give enough questions so that you can weight the answers and say each answer within a certain number of points. But also you're able to sort based on asking questions. So basically what I did is, you can see here, I'm analyzing right now. You can see the completion rate of people who went through my chatbot. So a couple people went to, let's go back to edit, but you can see the completion rate. So 100 people, 100% of those who interacted with my bot got through the first decision, and then the second decision, 33 went here, but they didn't go through and fill in their information. So it stopped, and then basically they just didn't want to cough up their email address, which is fine, right? It's okay if you don't want to give me your email address. But it also, they go to, the decision tree where it says, okay, what are you looking for help on? And then you can see it kind of filters down. So, uh, set up for offers. This tells me that they went to looking more about offers, and or set up for others. Sorry, they're just starting out. Let me move this. Can I move this? Okay. All right. So my little recordings right over where I can change the size. But what you can see is that there's like a percentage of where people fell off and where people got to. And you can see that there's some usage. Like everybody went to what are you looking for? And then there's different business tools, Dubsado product, ask a question, and then nobody went there. So either people wanted to get more information about business tools or Dubsado products, and it was a 60-30 split. 60-40. 66-33. So you can see like 1/3 of the visitors wanted to know more about business tools, and 2/3 wanted to learn about Dubsado products. Anyway, so that is analyzed so you can see the completion rate and where people got to in your chatbot, which is helpful. And I can also see like what most of my visitors are there for, which is Dubsado products, which is helpful when I'm planning out new products. So let's go and look at what these little modules in TDO look like. Okay, so we have the first thing was when they come to the site. I have it so that on my website, I have the chat icon. It doesn't automatically open. I want to make it unobtrusive. And then I also, especially when I get a lot of mobile users, I don't want a lot of mobile users getting overwhelmed by the chat instead of actually reading the website. But I want it to be there, obviously. So whenever somebody clicks on the chat icon, I also make it unlimited. So no matter how many times they want to use it, they can, because sometimes people have questions after they start looking through the site. Okay. And then from there, once they click on it, I ask them a question. There are some variables. So if you knew what their name was before you started, you could put that in there. But because this is like the first spot and I haven't asked for their name yet, can't really use the name merge field unless it's a repeat visitor who's already given me their name. And the decision is, hey, do you need help? Or no, I don't need help. And so if they say no thanks, then it goes to a message that says, great, let me know if you need anything. And then from there, if they're interested, they can get a 10% off coupon for anything on the website. Sometimes they have higher coupons based on if they're getting mailing from me or if there's a sale, things like that. So it's just a potential to capture a lead, which is one of the reasons I have this chatbot is not only to answer questions, but also to capture leads. So if they're interested in getting a coupon, then they would have to copy up their email address and their name. I might take their name out. I just address my emails to people instead of like hello friend. So I like to get their email address. But if I find that they're not getting past, if they're getting past the email and they're not putting in their name, then I might get rid of the name and just go directly just to email. And then from there, they get sent to Zapier. I have a Zapier. The module in TDO has a trigger to send new leads to ConvertKit. So basically what I do is I make sure that this module is here so that I can send those leads. I'm not going to show you because it does have a API code. And then from there, I say, great, thanks, name, because I grabbed their name. Here's the coupon code. And then if they have a question, they can move forward. If not, if they're just there for the free coupon code, great, and they're all set. And then, again, I just say, thanks. If you need any help, let me know. And then it closes the chat. I'm going to turn off this. So on all these modules, there's a transfer to operator message. Because I don't plan on using the communicator plan, I don't want to transfer to an operator. I don't want to encourage using this as a two-way communication with potential purchasers, just because I want them to use my contact form. Because my contact form also kind of already anticipates their questions and will send them detailed information about my Dubsado products, if they wanted to do, if they wanted to have setup for me and so forth. So it already kind of handles a situation that the chatbot isn't robust enough. So I really don't want to have to answer questions that are answered in the chatbot or answered via email without needing to intervene. So I'm trying to make this as hands-off as possible so that I'm spending less time answering questions and more time either creating content or providing services, things like that. Because a lot of the time, it's just helping people understand what the options are and answering questions that maybe they don't feel like reading the entire sales page for each product for. So just trying to be a very helpful addition, but it's not an opportunity to get coaching or whatever via chat at midnight, which is when people are usually on my website. It's very funny. Most of the 5 visitors I saw were coming on at 11 o'clock at night. So I'm asleep, especially on a Friday night. So it's just helpful to be able to answer questions when I'm not at my desk or just when I'm not able to be engaged in the conversation. So this is why I like the chatbot. The concept of the chatbot is I know what about 75% of the questions are going to be, and sometimes there's weird questions or questions I've never heard before, but most of the time they kind of fall into the same categories. So basically I have both this decision where they're going to ask a question or where they just want to completely bypass the coupon and go straight into the questions, right? As you can see, I use the name variable here because I grabbed it in this flow, but I don't use it again because there are people who are coming through who didn't put their name variable, and I don't want to make the text look awkward because thanks name, and it's just thanks space. So that's why you want to make sure you're following that logic. So anyway, this is where I started to really think about sorting people into the right section. So I have 3 kind of categories they can choose. The decision buttons in TDO up to 3. So you got to kind of really think about how you are sorting people. So basically on my store, I have 2 basic types of products. I have Dubsado products or I have business tools. I don't have much of anything else, or at least available to the public. I do use it for some back end for monthly subscriptions or so forth, but I don't use it as my general, it's on my catch-all site. So it's good to make sure that you know that there's only 3 choices, which helps people kind of sort themselves. And then it also helps you dig deeper once somebody kind of picks that overarching category. So from there, I'm making sure that I'm capturing all of my my goals for this chatbot, which is to capture leads if possible, and then also answer questions based on the products and the website. If there's additional things that they want information on, this Contact Me sends them to my website contact page, which once they fill in, it's an Airtable form, and then it replies back with even more detail based on their kind of decisions in the form. Okay. And then so from there, they say, okay, either a Dubsado product or a business tool. If it's a business tool, I ask them, what are you looking for in terms of business? Are you looking for structure, offering development, or communication tools? It's a little crowded here. I would probably have started way over here, but you can kind of see that things loop back. So basically I have a decision button here, which then goes to offering development. So basically I say, here's what I have for offering development, which is my guide on offerings at scale. And then if that's not what they need, it pushes them back to the business questions. Then the same thing here, I have business communication as one of the options. So this is telling them about my product, and then I link them directly to that product on my website. Same thing here. I have, if they're looking for a structure on their business, I have 3 offerings, myself, offerings, and how things run. And then this one talks about offerings at scale, the 3 C's opt-in. And then if they're looking for project management or how things run, then I go into project management or procedures. So basically, I'm just trying to filter down and kind of sort even deeper. You kind of have to know what your end game is, what products you want to sell, and then back into that a little bit, but also figure out the types of questions people ask and making them self-sort early on, saying, are you looking for help with this or with that? Or do you have questions about this or with that? So if you offer services where you do things for people or you teach people how to do things for people. You might have them, hey, are you looking for help with working with other people, or do you want me to do something for you? So making sure that you're kind of asking the visitor to self-identify. So for here with Dubsado, I say, are you just starting out? I get the basics, or I set up for others. If they're just starting out, I have a 101 program, which is my $200 product. I think it's $197, and I link to that. And if that's not what they need, they can go back to Dubsado here. And then if they're already kind of, if they're signing up for somebody else, I have a template bundle. And then if they get the gist, but they need some specific help based on their business type, then I have my workflows. And then I link them to the page that has all my workflows. I don't go into every single workflow offering that I have, just because they should be able to self-select based on that page. So basically, all I'm trying to do is help them sort and think about what kind of question they're trying to ask. Sometimes people are like, I have a question. Okay, what does your question pertain to? I don't know. So you're trying to go back and say, okay, I want them to figure out exactly what they need. And then I can answer those specific questions once they've kind of like told me if I'm warmer or colder. So, and then again, because I'm using because I only want to use a chatbot, I do want to make sure that they have a link to my contact page and that they're not overriding and asking questions, because I want to reduce the two-way communication and make sure it's really just answering questions when I'm not available, and also forcing them into another self-selection tool, which is the contact form. So like here in my contact form, I say, what is your request type? Are you looking for pricing information, having work together, or press inquiry? And then my press inquiry, I'm working on an auto reply. Here's my packet. But pricing information, it says, what service are you looking for? And so there, if they say Dubsado, I send them a long email about my Dubsado offerings. If they're out looking for Airtable, I send them a long email about my Airtable offerings. If they're looking for coaching, I have information about my growth accelerator. And if they're not sure what they need, then they know that I do have to jump in and actually answer the email. But for the most part, most people fit into those three kind of paths. And then I can answer those questions based on the path that they're looking for. And the reason why I force them into this contact form is because, again, I'm asking them to self-sort and kind of narrow down what questions they have, so that I'm not answering the same questions over and over again, because, it might need to be slightly adjusted for each person, but for the most part, people are just looking for information. So the more I can give them the information when they need it, like at midnight, because that's when they're thinking about it, or that's daytime for them too, I'm able to get them the questions and answer the questions when they need it. So using forms, using automation, I can answer a lot of questions without actually jumping in and writing out long emails, which usually are very similar each time. So the whole point of this chatbot is to think about what some of your end goals are. Like, I know all the products on my website fit into certain categories. I have my Dubsado workflows, I have my Dubsado course, and then I have some business tools and strategies in there. So I kind of want to force people to make a decision about what they're looking for, because usually they're coming to my store because they're looking for something specific. So I'm asking them to, like, what are you looking for? I don't know. I'm just here. Usually they're here for a specific reason. And if they got to my site from a Pinterest or from a Facebook post, then they can go in and dig deeper and find out what else I have, because I feel like no matter how you structure your website, it's not always clear all the options. So we're trying to make it so that there's as many ways to get answers as quickly as possible. So I hope it's been helpful for figuring out how to set up a chatbot. It doesn't have to be perfect. You might have some dead ends, but it's really just important to think about not only what your end goals are, but what are some other goals that you have? Like, do you want to add a lead capture element? Do you not want to force a lead capture element? And then do you want people to get back to their original question without, too many clicks? So I hope this is helpful. I hope that, it's a good starting point for figuring out what you want your chatbot to look like. and just helps you get the ideas flowing. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's really simple to set up. Most software is 100% about figuring out the strategy behind how you want to use it and what makes sense for you, and your tone and conversationalness, but also making sure that you're just achieving the goals that you're setting out to achieve. So I hope it's been helpful, and I'll see you soon.